We're back, May 10th. We're on the spot. Stephen Thompson's here. Our president said he don't want to spike the ball.
Interesting.
He don't need to.
He don't need to.
He said, I got you. I scored a touchdown.
Well, you know what? We're coming off a situation where the Los Angeles Lakers were swept.
Ooh.
And they didn't get into. I mean, as champions, it's a really embarrassing thing. But when you point out the idea that you are at a point where untouchable in the sense of your decision making, the consequences, the effect of your national feeling. You don't necessarily have to say a lot when your work speaks for you.
Mm-hmm.
Your work speaks for you. That's what ideally should happen. What we see is, I think, when people look back at this and we look at the historical nature of it, in the Bush administration, it was a failure of decision making in a lot of areas. And we have to really continually say about our women and men, soldiers that were sent into a place where there were no weapons of mass destruction.
4,000 people killed.
And every one of them deserve the respect. But when you have a person at the top, they make these big decisions and they have consequences. And in certain circumstances, it's life or death. So we're not talking about light stuff here, Norm. This is serious.
Well, you want to know what you can find out? Maybe if you can declassify them energy meetings.
Right.
You might find out why they went to Iraq.
Exactly.
And
Vice President Cheney.
They went to Afghanistan.
Exactly.
Pulled out.
Right.
They didn't pull out totally.
No.
But left Afghanistan alone. Had the Taliban on the run.
There you go.
Left that alone. Went to Iraq. Devoted all their time and attention. Gave away. We lost. They can't find about $9 billion in cash. Have no clue where it's at.
The accounting is terrible.
No investigation. They had over 100,000 contractors there.
Right. Halliburton.
Yes. We don't talk about that.
No.
It's not talked about because MSNBC, General Electric,
right,
has contracts out there. We don't talk about who had contracts and whose interest was in Iraq.
Right.
Why America was allowed, the taxpayers was allowed to be sold out.
Well, it's a very powerful thing when we use oil, and clearly, oil in its importance. It's really the centerpiece, if you want to say. Everything grows out of that. Our whole issue about the Middle East. Why is the Middle East such a valuable strategic geopolitical point of reference? It's oil. I mean, we all know that. It's oil.
Without a doubt.
Now, we've seen in the nature of what's going on, Libya, we've seen these issues of these countries that are oil rich, and the American public feels it. You don't like to pay $4.55 per gallon.
But it shouldn't have anything to do with Libya. And I don't want to get too far.
I understand. No, we're going to pull it back.
We don't need to get too far.
Yeah.
But the reality is Libya only gives us 2% of our oil.
This is true. This is true.
For us to have gas prices that went up over $1.
It's gouging. It's an industry that takes advantage of illusionary shortages.
Yeah. But we're going to get back to that.
Right.
We wanted to speak on the president within that week went to ground zero.
Right.
To meet with the families. He had Rudy Giuliani with him.
Yes.
Rudy really liked it.
I think so. Rudy wasn't in the past. Unfortunately, he has fallen off the limelight because of, let's just say, a lot of people wanted the impression that because you were America's mayor, maybe you could have been America's president. That didn't work out.
New Yorkers on September 10th was pissed off at Giuliani at the highest level, so to say. Yeah. They gave him the name America's mayor, but
I didn't, but what happens in a lot of issues is that people re-examine the work of the folk who did that. Really the energy should went to all the firemen and those who lost their lives, who ran up in a building.
Yeah, firemen, police department.
Police officers, first responders.
Yes.
For individuals that were, regular citizens. That's who we hold of honor, because you can't, talk about a person who wasn't doing it.
So the president gave the families to come in here.
Right. Lay the wreath.
Lay the wreath and say, listen,
Right.
This is supposed to be. Do I use the word closure?
I don't think it's a closure totally. It's the idea
what
that.
do you want to say for that?
I think we say that it is a release in a sense that people feel that for some crime that you commit, there's some kind of response. Consequence. And in a global situation, it tends to be defined as an act of war.
But I tell you, some of the family members did say it was a closure.
Right. I think
you were down there.
Right. I was down there.
Derek was down there.
Yes. They were packed from 8 o'clock in the morning. Our cameraman was there. He got unbelievable close.
Derek Myers. We got to say Derek Myers.
Right. Derek Myers. We're going to give his props and really did well to, get close. Really, it was amazing. The people showed up. It was a beautiful day. It said something about just the spirit. But people were really able to say, I need closure. It's a traumatic event. And it doesn't matter when an event happens and the whatever happens after that, you still respond to it. Okay. We still celebrate Pearl Harbor Day.
Without a doubt.
Well, it's not. So there is closure about a particular, person who's been taken to task, Osama bin Laden. But we don't not celebrate. There'll be the memorial. It'll be opening 2012.
The families felt
right that they needed.
Thank you.
Right. They wanted to thank him.
They put partisan politics aside and said, you know what? This for them. It wasn't Republican and Democrat.
Right.
It was. Thank you to our president for finally catching this guy.
Exactly. And it was a very powerful point because these families were saying, sometimes it always falls into this partisan politics. We really need to be the focus. And that's what he did. He really made it solemn, but he made them the focus.
Now, George Bush, hold on. Right. George Bush was invited.
He didn't want to come.
He invited George.
Well, he did. He extended that. I mean, it's a choice. President Bush said that he wouldn't want to come, and who knows? Maybe it was you don't know what the issue is, man. I mean, I can't hold a man. It would have been something I would think that you'd want to show up with
because you was a big part of it.
You were a big part of it, but there's a lot of issues that folks are navigating because there's still in a Republican's mind the fact that 2012 is coming. What's going to happen when he runs? Is there a Republican who can really mount a serious competition?
When Newt came out today.
Well, you know what? We knew that was happening, but the man in the long run is questionable. Someone who's got an interesting, how would you say, hypocritical type.
Without a doubt.
You can say if you choose to be about family values, and they've pointed out that you've had 3 families, I guess, 3 different wives and so many different things, and you're practicing until you get it right.
For our viewers that didn't know, we switched that.
We're going to switch that.
We switched subjects to now. We're talking
national politics.
Yes, and so you saying your friend Newt has a problem?
Well, yeah,
with
he has a big problem.
He was chasing
only
Bill
because the idea is no one should throw stones, but if you establish yourself as a family values person, then it really begs the question, if you're going to continuously have divorces and really not be, quote unquote, the type of person that you present yourself.
But we elaborate on the type of person he presented himself.
Yeah.
He, while chasing down and hawking President Bill Clinton on his Monica Lewinsky scandal, and talking his family values as the whole right always do.
Always.
He was having an affair. If I'm not mistaken, his wife might have been on her deathbed at that time.
He had the second wife-to-be, who was basically...
So how do he live that down coming up on this?
You really don't. Sometimes you ask questions of these politicians who are aware of their background. And, what happens is they have dropouts. They think that no one's going to look and question that.
Which was it? Which one was, what magazine was that? Hustler magazine?
I think either Penthouse or Playboy. Somebody did it.
$1 million.
Right.
They said, well, listen at this here. If you come up with something on the Republican Party, we'll give up $1 million to any one of these people that's talking about Bill Clinton, and everybody shut up.
Yeah.
Their backyards is dirty.
Well, you know what? A lot of them they live very interesting lives. They throw stones in glass houses. Not a good idea. And the 21st century is very powerful because a lot of people don't understand that everything is about transparency today. You really can't go anywhere without someone having a camera phone or seeing that you were over here when you said you were over there. Not going to work. It used to. It really did for a long period of time.
So a lot of Elliot Spitzer moments can be coming out?
Right down with every single thing, even to the folks who want to run but have, you know, the governor of, was it South Carolina? He said he was off on a trip up in the hills. He happened to be in another country.
That wasn't South Carolina. I can't think of what state that was.
No, it was South Carolina. He was the governor of South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
He said that he was in another country with the woman that, as they say, the woman that's not your wife.
Yes.
and that's interesting because, you know, none of us should really judge. But if you're going to present yourself as a person or a group of people of the family, I think that's what the hypocritical part of it, that is become cliche. They really all, it's become so bad that the Republican Party knows. I mean, they recently had somebody up, I think the Republican up in Connecticut or whatever, he was against smoking marijuana. But when he was stopped, he unfortunately got pulled over for smoking marijuana. It's a problem. It's a problem when you have these hypocritical. People are getting used to it, but they're getting tired of it too. You know?
On that note, we're going to close out this segment.